Scott, you're from South Africa, and your organisation, Wealth Migrate, really looks at helping South Africans invest in property around the world. How did you come across Warren, and what's the revelation been like for you?
Well, I mean, to put it in perspective, we've been investing in Australia now since 2008. So we nearly on a decade of actually investing there. And I always say to people, we don't invest in property, we actually invest in people and partners. So I met a gentleman called Richard Dunn, who back in 2008, we've been working together. I like and trust him. He joined our team about 2 years ago. And ultimately, his objective is not to go out and find good property deals. It's to find partners like Warren and his organization, so that when we help people invest, it's not just about buying good assets. It's also about a company that can execute and get the returns. And I think his track record speaks for himself. So that's really our focus. It's to find the Warrens of the world, and ultimately to allow South Africans to participate and be able to invest with the Warrens of the world, because normally they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to get on an airplane and fly over there and immediately uncover Warren, because I'll be honest with you, when I first arrived in Australia, they'll tell you pretty much anything to get a deal, and they'll sell you something in the middle of Ayers Rock with a view of Sydney Harbour, and you don't know what's going on. And for South Africans, is that up until technology arrived on the scene, is that people like Warren were there, they were doing great deals. If you were ultra high net worth, you could get access to these type of deals. But with technology now, those barriers of entry are dropping down to, at the moment, they stand at $10,000. We're beta testing $100. And I mean, that's super exciting. I mean, literally someone like yourself, myself, can now put in $100. They can see it. They can learn while doing. And ultimately, that will change all our lives. And it's no longer about having to leave South Africa and go and immigrate to Australia. We can stay in South Africa. We can be global citizens, invested with world-class partners and world-class assets, and ultimately get world-class returns, which is what we're looking for.
Warren, you've been touring South Africa now. What has been your impression of the whole investment scene here?
Well, I can see there's some very good operators, Matt. Some people who really know what they're doing, and maybe I've been meeting with the best in Wealth Migrate, but we've had a great, been here a week now, had a great time, been to Joburg and now down in Cape Town. And I see some very good quality buildings, particularly here in Cape Town, just absolutely magnificent. So I'm keen to come back. They've done a great job, and I think in a lot of areas they're probably not unlike the Australians, but because of your investment climate, there's probably a few really standout performers that have done some different things and do a great job.
And what should investors look at when they're looking at a REIT investment? What are the key things that, because there are quite a few out there, what should investors go, okay, this is the type of REIT that I need to be in?
Well, I know most disclaimers will say past performance is no guide to the future, but I think you need to have a look at the returns that the fund managers are giving, and then look further into that, do some research, see if they are consistent. So normally you'll find that the asset manager is buying the right property and delivering those returns, where, without being too critical, a lot of the bigger institutions, they don't promote returns, they just will promote security or the size of them. And while that might be great, the average investor really wants returns. So as Scott said, get on the internet, do some research, have a look at news clippings. There's a lot of information on there that you can do before you start investing. I think a lot of people probably go what they would think is the easy route, and that is speak to their accountants or their investment advisors. And what we know in Australia is they will normally get recommended to the company that is paying them the biggest commissions. Now, I don't know how it works in South Africa, but that's that's what happens in Australia, and it's very disappointing. And when the GFC happens and the crash goes down, not one of those advisors goes to jail. Plenty of people go bankrupt, lose everything. So these days with the internet, do some research. Don't be a lazy investor.
But I think also, just to jump in there, you ask, how do you choose a REIT? Yes, past performance and track record is important, but how do you emulate that into the future? And one of the things I love of having just spent the last week with Warren here is the level of detail, the attention to detail he goes on execution. And I have to tell you that story of how, if you ask your property manager, hey, take a couple of pictures of my building, they're always going to take pictures of where there's no rubbish. What he does is he sticks a GoPro on their head and he says, okay, let's go for a walk around the building. Okay, go left, go right. They don't know where they're going to go. I've watched him. We've been up escalators here. We get to the top and he goes, they haven't actually done this right, and because of this, there's going to be dirt here, etc. His attention to detail is immaculate. And he never stops looking. And the point is, he's created an organization that has that same attention to detail. And you know, how you do something is how you do everything. And so ultimately, it's that attention to detail that's ultimately paying those returns. And you know, to put in perspective, Matt, we're talking 10% plus cash on cash returns in Australian dollars. That's not happening here in South Africa. It's not. And that's taking no capital growth into account and no rand devaluation into account. And my point being is that it's that attention to detail that's getting him names like the property whisperer, because it's the execution that counts at the end of the day.